A very warm welcome to our session today on future skills for societal value. This is a joint session together with the International Council for Open and Distance Education, or ICDE, and the Knowledge Equity Network. We are delighted to have very special guests with us. First of all, my name is Chrissi. I'm a senior lead of the Knowledge Equity Network. And a professor in creative and open education at the University of Leeds, and will be hosting the session today. I'm delighted to have three wonderful colleagues with me today. Ulf-Daniel, Glenda Cox, and Torunn Gjelsvik. And I will introduce them now, and we will then move into their presentations, which will be followed up by questions. So we would like you to share your questions and any observations you have in the chat, but also you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, so that we can then use them in the conversation that will follow the three short presentations. Okay, so let's start with Ulf. So Ulf-Daniel Ehlers, hello Ulf, is the founder of Mindful Leaders, of the Mindful Leaders Net, and a serial social entrepreneur. He's a professor of educational management at Baden-Württemberg Cooperative State University, and in 2011 he launched Germany's first cooperative university, which now has over 35,000 students. And it would be interesting to hear about this at some point as well. In 2017, he founded Next Education, which focuses on the future of education and future skills. And I suspect some of you, or many of you, will have read some of these publications, which are available in German and in English. I have read many of these myself. Ulf has collaborated with over 30 universities globally and held a range of leadership roles in various large organizations. He has delivered keynotes in 45 countries and authored over 20 books and 300 scholarly articles. So he's very, very prolific, and he does that with many collaborators across the globe, as far as I can see. Integrating future skills into education and sustainable development is something that seems to be dear to his heart, and we are very much looking forward to his contribution. Second, we have our dear Glenda with us, Glenda Cox, who is passionate about the role of open education in the changing world of higher education. She's an associate professor and works in the Center for Innovation and Learning and Teaching at the University of Cape Town. So she's joining us with short sleeves, I noticed, so it's nice and warm. Her portfolio includes postgraduate teaching, curriculum change projects, open education, and staff development. She holds the chair in open education and social justice, and is a board member of Open Education Global. She's also the editorial board of the International Journal of Students as Partners, and her contributions will be sort of linked to that role as well, which is very exciting. Currently, she is a principal investigator of the digital open textbooks for development project, and we will be hearing more about this in her contribution. Her current research is in the area of exploring and analyzing the role of open textbooks for social justice. I met Glenda. Glenda is also a GoGN alumna like myself, and we met in Krakow many years ago now. Okay, and we also have the wonderful Torunn Gjelsvik with us, who is from Oslo in Norway, who is the Secretary General of the International Council for Open and Distance Education, or ICDE, as we used to call it. ICDE holds members from over 70 countries. This is very impressive, in various regions of the world, organizations, associations, and individuals, but also including students, not just educators. She specializes in open, flexible, distance, and online learning, and is a strong advocate for inclusive, scalable, sustainable education and lifelong learning opportunities for all, and we know how important that is in our times. Gjelsvik holds Torunn holds a master's degree in Nordic languages and literature, and education background includes French, history, management, and strategic communication. She has held various important roles nationally and internationally, leadership roles in the field of distance and online education for the past 30 years. So very, very experienced in operating at the international and global stage. And we are delighted that you're with us to share your latest insights. She has been also a panelist on many international education conferences around the globe. As you can see, all our speakers here today have many valuable things to contribute. Today, we are focusing on the future skills for societal value, and I'll hand over to Ulf, who's going to make a start. Please, dear colleagues, contribute via the chat and the Q&A so that this becomes a valuable session for everybody and we can have a fruitful conversation after the presentations. Over to you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much, and hello from my side. Good afternoon, here from Germany. I'm delighted to talk a little bit about future skills and the work we do on future skills. We are a research institution, a small research institute, and we focus on future skills research. We believe very much that there needs to be what we call a future skills turn in higher education and education at large, actually, but we focus on higher education. And we believe that higher education, in order to turn, needs valuable research insights, actually, because scientific institutions need the scientific insights to be informed about strategy of the future. So that's what we do very much, provide studies and scientific insights into future skills. Which future skills are important for the future? How to bring future skills into teaching methodologies and other questions alike. We run two portals. One is called NextSkills.org and the other one is called Next Education. NextSkills.org provides all our data, open access, all our publications, and also a number of tutorials, learning modules, videos on the methodology of our studies, but also on the content of our studies, obviously. When you think about the future, actually, one driver for thinking about future education and future skills are the trends, the mega trends, which we live through today, which we experience today. And there's a beautiful institute in Germany. They provide since many years, every year or every second year, what they call a trend map. And this is a screenshot of their latest publications. And what they do is actually they try to define several zones of trends for the labor market. And you can see here the zones: act, create, develop, and discover. And what they say is that the zone which is closest to us and where we need to act is actually the act zone. Then the create zone is the zone in which things are developing and they try to come up with trends which they see. And then development is a bit further away, and so on and so on. And what they try to do is they try to define fields and patches of professions and of occupations and describe their change and describe which competencies are actually needed there. And this is one approach which you can take and where you see how megatrends in society, aging society or digitalization or healthcare challenges, climate change, and so on, how megatrends and mega influences in society are actually very much influential into how we are going to live and work in the future, and then also provide hints and provide recommendations on skills. That's pretty much what the field which we work in as well. We started about almost 8 years ago to develop what we call a research methodology on the next skills. And the next skills report was also the foundational model, which we published in 2020 then. It is a map, a road map, or like you can say maybe a metro plan, like it looks like, on future skill profiles, which become important in education. And how we did that is that we identified institutions, identified organizations from the public sphere, but also from the private sphere, corporate sphere. And we went into these organizations, we identified those organizations which we found were very, very advanced in dealing with their discussions and concepts on future knowledge, future competencies. We went in there and we collected data through long interviews and also some quantitative methods. And then we generated inventories from that and we clustered them. And in the end, we ended up with our 17 future skills profiles. We call them profiles because they each contain future skills items still. So underneath this layer, you find a layer with future skill items, 1 or 2 or 3 items per profile, so that you end up with 35 competencies more or less, and 17 of these profiles. And you can see here that there are some competency profiles which you would probably think of as old competencies, communication competence, cooperation competence. But what we did actually is we tried to come up with definitions and descriptions which are making them future skills. For example, digital leadership, leading teams in a distributed setting through the internet, online communication is one skill which is contained in cooperation competence. And that is the way we try to label and we try to define these competence profiles, these future skills profiles, in a way to make them shape future. There are also other competence profiles which are quite, let's say, new. Ambiguity competence, for example, sense making, resilience is also in there. Future design competence, innovation competence, and so on and so on. Some of them are also already defined by, for example, learning psychology. So we try to use definitions from there. In the net, in the online version, you find this map clickable and interactive, so you can download for each of these competence profiles your own description. We went further than that, and all of that which I show you is published open access, and you can download it from our websites. 2 years later, we entered into a meta study on future skills, and we collected 13 different future skills frameworks and made a meta study on future skills to find out if in our profile of 17, in our concept of 17 future skill profiles, we need to add something, or if that is sufficient to the future skills we found in the literature. And we can say that we are still thinking it is a sufficient, well laid out model, which is able to capture the future skills concepts of these studies today. Although we think also that probably it would be useful to do this study every 2 or 3 years, and that's why we, that's why we are going to repeat this exercise also this year in 2025. In 2023, we started to develop what we call domain-specific competence models and competence research. Domain-specific meaning for this time we researched AI competencies, and from a very large study actually with about 1,700 participants, we created a new model which is a future skills model for a professional world and a private world influenced through AI. This contains 12 different fields, and you also find all information, also a model in which you can find learning objectives for higher education and everything you need to know to to integrate it into teaching and learning also at this website, aicomp.org. Our understanding of future skills is that we align it to competence theory. We think that future skills contain knowledge, skills, and attitudes, and that all are important. Still in higher education, we are quite good at teaching knowledge. We are also sometimes good at supporting skill development. But we believe very much that in our learning designs, we still need to become a bit better of also including learning about values, discussion about values, value development, and so on, attitudes, in order to become more holistic. I have to stop here because my time is running out. I will upload the slides so you get all information also from, for example, the OER office, which we have on our AI learning platform, and all other learning materials. So for now, I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and maybe we have time for one or two questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ulf. That was very insightful, the overview, I think, for all of us, and get a little bit more familiar with the work you have been doing with many colleagues. There will be questions after all three of you finish. We would encourage everybody to continue typing their questions into the chat or the Q&A. I personally, just a very brief observation, really like what you said there about repeating the study every 2 to 3 years, which shows the dynamism and how quickly things are changing. So later, maybe we could find out how this is possible, how you would maybe encourage universities and individuals to be involved in that study. I think there may be colleagues who are interested. But thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. We are going to hand over to Glenda now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chrissi. That okay? You happy, Chrissi? All good? Can
all
everybody
good.
hear
All
me?
good. All
okay,
good.
Okay. It's quiet for a moment there. Thank you very much for inviting me here to join in this conversation. It's wonderful to see Ulf again, who visited Cape Town last year. It was a very valuable visit for us. Really enjoyed the conversation around these future skills, and great to see you again, Chrissi, my fellow GoGN member. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about open education perspectives and from a kind of within a higher education perspective, but also I have kind of these other networks around UNESCO, but also thinking about very interesting ways of looking at the future, and what kinds of things we should be thinking about as we go into the future, and hopefully suggest one or two ideas that I have about that. So I'm from the University of Cape Town, and from the Centre for Innovation in Learning and Teaching. And I am the UNESCO Chair in Open Education and Social Justice. And my UCT chair, is also part of a bigger network called the Unitwin Network on Open Education. And we're quite newly formed, and we're getting some exciting projects together, 15 representatives from around the world. And hopefully you'll be hearing more about that from me in the future. This is my wonderful team back at the University of Cape Town, Michelle and Bianca. So we've been working in the Digital Open Textbooks for Development project since 2018. And it was initially funded, but now it is part of the institution. So that was wonderful recognition that this was actually part of core business, and that we should have staff members that were actually working on open textbooks at the University of Cape Town. And And we've done a lot of research over the years and implementation work. Just want to acknowledge that we also received this credit from GoGN. That was a really nice kind of boost for our confidence around our research and our work. So we just very briefly, we've got some exciting projects that we're working on at the moment. We've mostly been working within the University of Cape Town, but also reaching across South Africa to other South African institutions and collaborating with other chairs in South Africa and other researchers. And we have this new project that I just wanted to kind of introduce. We're doing a project that's entitled Open Textbooks as Public Goods for Transforming Education. And we'll be working with the African Simulation Network in the Faculty of Health Sciences at UCT. And this is a project we're going to be working on through this year. We only received the funding quite recently, even though this says 2022. So an exciting new area of moving quite firmly into kind of medical education and open textbooks. So that's something we're working on. And the other very exciting thing we're working on is a student fellowship program. And I will talk a little bit more about student partners, a big priority for us at the moment. So we have student fellows at the University of Cape Town who have volunteered enthusiastically to join us to learn more about open education, get involved in Global South conversations around open education and social justice, and actually be our partners in doing research work, advocacy work, and that seems to be going very well at the moment. We're planning a student-led symposium in May 2025. That'll be all about students and student presentations in open education. So I'm a UNESCO chair in open education and social justice, and the idea with the UNESCO chairs is not so much that there's any funding involved, but that one builds the most amazing connections and networks through time. And when in my 4th year now, I need to renew. And in the beginning, I was kind of a little bit, I'm not sure quite what I'm benefiting from this, but I've realized from being in the UNESCO networks for the last few years that it is actually really beneficial. And I'm hoping through this new open network that we can make bigger, more global changes in practice towards open education. So open education is built on the foundation that knowledge is a public good. It's an umbrella term that includes various forms of open practices, open access to research, data and science. The materials are freely accessible, openly licensed, and released on platforms and in formats that offer opportunities for inclusive, localized, contextualized, informed, and collaborative authorship techniques, bringing forward previously unheard voices. So that's what we're hoping to achieve with our open textbook. These practices really help to kind of bring institutional curriculum transformation to the fore. And what we've done at the University of Cape Town is we've brought open education firmly into the conversation of social justice and decolonial pedagogies, where we really want to establish inclusive learning environments. And one of the ways of doing that is to make sure that the textbooks, the resources that students are using are locally relevant to them. And this is all built on this concept of social justice. And I won't go into the theory particularly, but the basic principle is that it's a social arrangement that makes it possible for everyone to participate equally in society. And as a team, as a .4D team, we've written quite a lot about this. If anyone's interested in making an argument for the clear linking between open education for social justice. Okay. So I wanted to just include this slide because there is a lot of work that's done globally around futures of higher education. I think it's touching almost all conversations and so many conferences at the moment as we grapple with the idea of how we're going to transform higher education, and how we can look forward to kind of futures of higher education and what action needs to be taken for us to keep higher education moving and up to date. And I quite liked this particular production of UNESCO, where they talk about a new social contract for education, moving towards openness, inclusivity and diversity, moving away from neoliberal competition towards higher education as a public and common good, rethinking existing pedagogy, and then lastly, this point that I want to kind of bring to the fore, the idea that students should be foregrounded, so that they can feel this kind of sense of belonging in higher education and be able to share their knowledge. One of the conferences that I went to recently was this Transforming Knowledge for Africa's Future. And just to kind of bring an African perspective into this, it was very interesting and a very challenging event to kind of go through some of the statistics that we're facing in Africa at the moment around the number of young people coming into the workforce and the number of young people coming into higher education, and how we can think about making open education more visible, making resources more available, and especially kind of ideas like open science were very important and appeared a lot in these discussions at this particular session. Other areas that were foregrounded were the idea of decolonizing and transforming curricula, and that aligns really nicely with the work in open education. It was also a call for a strengthening of South-South and South-South-North partnerships, and that's also something that, you know, it's so nice to be in this kind of panel where you're talking to people and learning from people who come with quite different perspectives and backgrounds. And I think that's how we can move forward through these kinds of collaboration. So just to end my slides for now, I just wanted to kind of suggest that out of all of this, I think in terms of future solutions to working towards a preferred future, that open education is certainly a way forward, and it enables student voice. And through our student work, we've realized just how much students and staff benefit from collaborating together on coursework, on authorship, on feedback mechanisms around courses. It has really been quite a powerful way for students to learn along the way about being an academic, about thinking differently and in a more complex way. And certainly at the University of Cape Town and through some of the other work that I'm doing, I really do want to make this connection with student partnerships and open education. And this idea that student partnerships have all these kinds of merits, but student partnership and open education means that students get the credit and recognition and authorship on materials, which is something really important and really seems to kind of shape the way they feel and give them the sort of sense of empowerment. So those are the kinds of concepts I wanted to link together. Okay, that's all from me for now.
Thank you so much, Glenda. That was really insightful, emphasizing on voice and how open education can give us that voice, isn't it? Especially the unheard voices when we bring diverse individuals together. And I like what you said there at the end about empowerment and authorship, co-authorship and collaboration in a world that's highly competitive, highly confrontational. Unfortunately, you know, open education can bring voice and connect us at the human level, as you say, north, south, east, west. I probably got my directions wrong here, but you know what I mean. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to the conversation afterwards. Thank you so much. And we'll hand over to Torunn now. We are delighted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chrissi. So thank you for the invitation. My approach to today's topic is how civil society organizations can contribute to this topic. And because I only have 10 minutes, and I wanted to wake you up a bit. I wanted to start with exploring what's the difference between universities and civil society organizations. If you describe them as different vehicles, what could they look like? Well, this is what they look like if you ask AI to generate an image for you. While trying to link this to education, you could say that it's possible to describe universities as large tankers and civil society organizations like smaller, more agile vehicles. If you relate them to education, you could say that universities like tankers have significant resources and influence, but they may be slower to adapt. It takes more time to turn this vehicle around, while CSOs, like agile vehicles, can quickly respond to societal needs and fill gaps in service delivery. They both play crucial roles for education, with the universities providing long-term foundational support through education and research, while civil society organizations may offer more rapid, targeted interventions and advocacy. So what can universities learn from civil society? Collaboration across sectors and industries to create new knowledge arenas. Civil society organizations often act as mediators between authorities and society, communities. Focus on societal benefits and sustainability. Interdisciplinary approach to solving complex problems, and practice-oriented learning and innovation, including the use of new technology, and also openness to experimentation and new approaches for education. So this was a pitch for my organization, obviously, which represents the civil society. So ICDE, the International Council for Open and Distance Education, is the oldest and leading membership organization in the field of open distance, flexible learning and education. It's an NGO, it's a not-for-profit, and it's partly hosted by Norway, which is why the Secretariat of ICDE, which I'm head of, is based in Norway. And we have around 350 members and partners in all world regions, actually in more than 90 countries now. So I need to update my bio now, Chrissi. We have expanded our reach in the past year. And we're in a consultative partnership with UNESCO, so working towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 4, quality education for all. And the historical lines, as I said, they go way back to 1938, when the organization was established as the International Council for Correspondence Education. So that available technologies back then were postal letters. So while technologies have changed a lot over these years, as well as the diversification of education providers, the purpose, the why of ICDE remains the same. It is really to support inclusive and equitable access to education and learning for all, so in line with the current SDG 4. But there are many challenges, when looking at this whole picture of the need of changing education and the transformative power of education itself, well, we definitely know that there's an increasing relevance of open educational resources, like Glenda talked about, open education, distance, digital, flexible learning, in enabling higher education to adapt its mode to a delivery that will better match the changing societal circumstances and needs. Many of ICD strategic objectives and activities relate to many of these key drivers that is mentioned in the future skills framework, such as the digital transformation, the blurred boundaries that we see now between traditional universities and the open, flexible distance learning providers, and the increased need for flexibility in learning and work due to the demands from lifelong learning, employability, reskilling, upskilling, stackable learning, all of this. So in this landscape, there are many challenges, and I've listed a few of them there. The lack of understanding, first of all, why do universities need to change? And if there is an understanding, there could also be a lack of awareness. But how do we change? And where do we find the resources? What is the value of open education or open education resources? There can be challenges relating to limiting policies and regulatory frameworks. It can be challenging to align your university strategy with the SDGs, even though you want it. You want to harness the innovative potential of all the technologies, but you also want to provide inclusive access. And how do you define that? So this is why I think ICDE, through its history and consistent focus on inclusivity and knowledge equity, still has a role to play. And we seek to collaborate with as many partners and members as possible, because we're very far from reaching the goal of SDG 4. But what is even inclusive access? How do you define that? 1/3 of the world's population still doesn't have access to the internet. What does that mean? And with the SDG 4, it is pretty clear that, I mean, it has been acknowledged the transformative power of education and the role it plays for achieving the whole Sustainable Development Agenda. And it's unthinkable that we can achieve this goal without scalable and flexible learning solutions because of the massification of this goal. But we also need to ensure quality. And that is a challenge as long as many countries and regions still don't have comprehensive qualification frameworks or accreditation systems that cover all these various types of provision. So there is a lack of awareness, and advocacy is needed. So one of the major activities that ICDE has undertaken over the past few years is a global advocacy campaign. So we engage members globally so that they can be locally relevant in their advocacy efforts to make significant change through their contributions to education. We have a new strategy for 25 to 28. And while our previous vision that you can see on the screen to achieve the potential of open, flexible, and distance learning created through our members and learning communities, it points directly to these types of provisions that I've talked about, while the new purpose statement, together we shape inclusive, scalable, and sustainable education, it's deliberately shaped to be broader, to point directly at the societal impact and transformative power of education. So through this new purpose statement and strategy, we are aiming to better showcase members' contributions to storytelling. We have many examples to choose from, and I will only have time to browse quickly through a few of them, such as how China now heavily invests in lifelong learning through a national smart education platform, including setting up a seniors university through one of our members, the China Open University. Or this example from Norway, the Lillehammer Lifelong Learning Roadmap, from a conference we hosted together with a Norwegian member 2 times actually, where this is the major output of this event, and it's an interactive map collaboratively developed by conference delegates during 3 conference days that give advice, concrete advice for different sectors and levels on how to develop and further lifelong learning. This is a storytelling from the history. This is an example from Norway in the correspondence education time. Note the year. This is a correspondence course in practical mathematics from 1944-45. This was during the Second World War, where Norway was under German occupation, universities were closed, but distance education was still open. Or this example, brand new example of an innovative AI-powered solution for teachers, the AI Teaching Assistant Pro, a free and openly available tool for teachers and course developers, offered by one of our Canadian members, the Contact North. So all of this, ICDE's new strategy and purpose statement furthers international collaboration, sharing, co-learning for transformation, growth, and societal impact. This is our main response to the VUCA world mentioned in Ulf's book, the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. We believe that the value of international collaboration is about diversity, respect, understanding, and trust building. It is about humans within the organizations, and therefore we also need to meet in person once in a while. For example, at one of ICDE's member-hosted conferences across the globe. And while these pictures are from our latest conference in Geneva last year, the ICD Leadership Summit, our next conference will be in Wellington in New Zealand. And the registration is open, call for contribution is open, so I hope everyone will check this out and hope to see many of you there. The conference is hosted by Massey University and Open Polytechnic of New Zealand. And we welcome more members to engage with us. So please follow us on social media or contact me after this if you're interested in learning more. And thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you so much, Torunn. That was wonderful to hear all the work you are doing, and interesting how civil society on one side, universities on the other, and actually using that metaphor, how powerful it is to see on the screen. I suspect many of us can relate to this from both sides. I suspect of the metaphor, the big tanker, difficult to move and maneuver and make change happen, but also the agility of civil society and the important role they play. I mean, in higher education, we often talk about what is happening in the real world or preparing students for the real world, which is perhaps unfortunate because we ourselves make that distinction that here's a university and here's society. So something to think about, I think, more critically, and how we can integrate universities fully in society and what's happening. So thank you so much, Torunn. Thank you so much, Ulf, as well, and Glenda. I think we have time now for an open conversation, and we can ask some questions, but what we would also like is the three of you to interact in the conversation about each other's contributions and thoughts you shared, and we hope that this will be possible. So maybe we can start with a question we can ask Torunn. We have a question here about, you talked about the importance of collaboration and bringing diverse people from different parts of the world together, and you do that effectively globally. So what are the challenges? While we are trying to do that, what are the challenges in enabling these international collaboration, and how does ICDE tackle some of the challenges that are there when we want to have fruitful international collaborations? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for the question. Well, there are some obvious challenges related to language, time zones, cultural differences too. While some of these can be supported by technologies, for example, AI translation tools can help a lot in the discussions. There's also another aspect of trust building, which relates to a culture. And in our strategy, we have defined the ICD culture as consisting of 3 C's. So it's a culture of curiosity, challenge, and care. And the curiosity is about being open to new perspectives, new technologies, new pedagogies. The challenge is to challenge the current system. Like our members have always shown that education can be done in different ways. And the care is about the human aspect of respect and trust building. So I think this is what we're aiming to foster, and no machines, can create this. So that's the difference between the machines and the humans, is that we, the humans, we have bodies, we have senses, we can hear and listen and touch and feel and eat and drink. And that's why it's so important to also gather these people sometimes during our events across all the time zones to build that trust. So I think we're trying to do both and solve a spectrum of these challenges. But lastly, I will mention that I think members would need to learn from each other. It's not only us in the Secretariat, it's really to bring people together so they can learn from each other, like you are doing too in the Knowledge Equity Network, to bring different perspectives together. People are normally interested in learning from each other, and that's the beauty of international collaboration.
Thank you so much, Torunn. I don't know if Ulf or Glenda would like to add something from their side to this response or question. Yes, Glenda?
Sorry, just trying to unmute.
It's okay.
Torunn, that was so interesting about the link with civil society, and it's just really great examples. It's very interesting. And it just kind of makes me think that back to kind of, the purpose of higher education. And I mean, wasn't it always the purpose of higher education to help students to be responsible, ethical, capable, critical members of civil society? And so it kind of feels a little sad in a way that we've lost that connection that we should be having. And I think it's, it's got to do with this kind of neoliberal competitiveness where higher education institutes have so largely become about, the student as the client and getting students through so that we can survive, because a lot of us are in a lot of financial trouble. And so I think, the ICDE has such a valuable role to keep reminding and keep bringing in those examples. And we need to be more mindful of those in the future. And we had a session a little while ago, and we were asking students about their preferred futures. And there were a couple of things that they said, but one of them was if they could imagine a preferred future, they would imagine the university being embedded in the community. And I know that's obviously aspirational, but I think perhaps it's the only way to solve all the problems that we have right now. If the university is not embedded in the crises that are happening around climate change and so on, and understanding what communities need as well. I mean, I think we're going to have a problem there. And there will be this continued divide between civil society and universities, and we definitely don't want that. Anyway, that was my comment on yours. Thank you very much, Torunn.
Thank you so much, Glenda. Ulf, is there anything you would like to add to this? I mean, we are also wondering about the framework. You went to South Africa. We heard Glenda talking about that visit there. How was it received? Did you see any differences in how people engage with it from the Global North and the framework? And if you can give us an example maybe of how the framework has been or is currently used.
Yeah, I would like to respond also to the issues which have been raised now through my colleagues, because I think this is so important to find a way to reconnect between higher education and societal stakeholders of civil society, of the labor market, bringing students, unions, all social partners together. And I was quite amazed when I arrived here in the state where I am now, actually 12 years ago. They were actually asking me to be part of a team to launch a new university. And this university has predecessors. It was a merger of 8 existing academies. And they were all founded on a belief that all social partners and stakeholders should build together an institution. And one of the, I always call it holy grails of this endeavor was the development of a common contract. A contract between students, the university, and labor market institutions. And the negotiation of this contract takes place every 4, 5, or 6 years in a new way, in a new version. And as the vice president of this university, I had the privilege to chair these negotiations. And these negotiations were taking place between the student unions, the labor market unions, labor market representatives, the Ministry of Higher Education, and the university itself. And it was really a very profound discussion about what kind of status should students have, for example. What should they learn, and how much should they learn for employability? How much should they learn for life? How much can they become part of an innovation alliance? How can we work for a university, we discussed, in which students are actually the innovation agents, which go out of academia into society organizations. And this university, which I'm talking of, my university, has 9,000 of these labor market and civil society organizations. These are clinics, hospitals, youth organizations, NGOs, but also industry organizations. And I think this is really a model which I very much like to think of, in which this exposure from academia to society back and forth is practiced in a good way. And in that way, that's my second point, is coming also, including also your question about the framework. In this partnership also, the question, what should a university be actually? What kind of objectives should it follow? What are our educational objectives? And that's just another question than asking what are important future skills students and graduates should have. Because these important future skills defined in collaboration between civil society organizations and academia should be actually at the heart of what we do in academia, in higher education. We should try to weave a network of experiences in which academic knowledge plus experiences from societal action fields, like working in an organization at the labor market or from the civil society in an NGO, should be coupled together into a learning journey which is based on reflecting the experience which students have made and bringing them into what we call competencies and future skills, which enable them to shape our future societies. So that's what I wanted to stress, that this can go very well together. The broad collaboration between academia and society, and the definition of what should we focus on, what should we work for, what are the future skills for the future. And just to answer very quickly also your question, we have just actually launched a book that was published open access, and I will put it here in the chat also, about 11 months ago. It's called Creation of the Future University. And it is a book which is collecting 30 different experiences where institutions of higher education have integrated future skills into their curriculum or into their institution in a nice way. And we've collected this to show that globally, actually, there is a capacity to do that. And there are models from which everybody can learn.
Thank you so much. So there is hope. And there are real examples out there of how we can do it. What you said there, Ulf, around the contract, the Innovation Alliance, and having actually students and other stakeholders outside the university at the heart, and operating with collegiality, transparency, and openness, and potentially creating a sense of trust, what Torunn also said, trust, but also collaboration, is an interesting model for universities, I think, to consider. And I'll hand over to Glenda, perhaps, because you talked a little bit about student partnerships. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts were on this, Glenda, also in light of the projects you're currently involved in, how and why maybe you would encourage other colleagues to pursue this path of student partnerships. Thank you.
I think the student partnership work is very much context specific. So we have examples of, and I can give you the examples of the open textbooks. So student partnership and students as partners work. You read out on the International Journal of Students as Partners. It's quite an established area of research. There's very interesting examples of building it as a field where there's a real emphasis on sort of flattening of hierarchies and power structures. And a lot of thought has gone into kind of trying to build ways to work with students. And my examples are kind of on a continuum where we have an example of a textbook that was written completely by students. So it was student-led, it's in pediatrics. And the students had this idea to write this textbook because they had all these amazing notes that they'd made. And they got experts in to edit and everything, but they were the actual authors of the book. So there's this kind of student-led idea. But what we've been working with is more of a kind of volunteer, do you want to help out kind of way of doing things. And we've seen various authors use students in different ways. And there's something about it, it's such a reciprocal relationship that there's almost a philosophy that you kind of, we can see in these educators where they really listen and really value what students have to say, and can bring themselves to that level of respect and so reciprocity. And that's not so easy in higher education. We talk about the big cruise liner or ship or whatever that was, Titanic, maybe. It's very difficult to change those structures, those traditional hierarchies. I remember Ulf's presentation from Cape Town talking about higher education being very much predefined and homogenous and like transactional, and students as partners is it's a way to transform in the sense of like getting at the underlying power structures and actually changing and help making academics think about the role of students differently. I could go on for a long time about this, but it's extremely rewarding work, and I think it's the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Glenda, for these insights. And as you say, we could go on forever because there are so many interesting perspectives that all three of you brought to this. And we hope this is the beginning of a conversation, also with colleagues who have shared us. We will have all your contact details. I'm sure they can find you easily, but we will share everything so that they can get in direct contact with you. Maybe one final question, if I may ask Torunn, if that's okay. Since we talk about the divide, and we hope that higher education is not going to be the Titanic and go under, but that we will find, ways to maneuver in that ocean. So my question, Torunn, would be, what would be one tiny action that universities potentially can take to make a big difference potentially?
Yeah, I think to set aside time to investigate in this, like the universities of Ulf and Glenda has done, because they clearly show examples of of results when there's cross-sectorial collaboration, or when you challenge the traditional hierarchies and put the students, to work in a different way, and you see things happen. So because it can be, I realize universities struggle with funding and regulation, and it just can be too much. You're just in your silo and you're trying to do your best. But it's worthwhile setting aside some time to open to the world. So set aside time and be curious, I guess.
Okay, thank you so much. And on that note, I think we have reached the end of our conversation here. I'm delighted that we had Glenda with us, Torunn and Ulf, and we would like to thank you all for your time to be with us today, for the preparation and the conversations we had. We will continue thinking about the issues and opportunities you raised. There are many opportunities and for collaboration also, and I think we should focus on this and give hope and make the world a better place, and universities and civil society play a vital role in this. So a big thank you to all of you and everybody who joined us today. We wish you all the best. And Tom, Here's a slide. We will have further events coming up, so please have a look what the Knowledge Equity Network and other partners is offering in the future. So please join us. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are, and bye-bye for now. Thank you so much.